What's good, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. This is the Texans Better Talk Show. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel recently. And if you're new to the channel and you like Texans content, I got daily Texans content here. So just like and subscribe. We're building a great community. And without further ado, let's talk about the 22 Texans free agents that they have that are about to go into free agency. And we're going to make some decisions. We're going to decide if we should keep that player or if we should let them walk. The lowest salary player right now is Jake Hansen, a linebacker. He saw very few snaps, 12.2% of the snaps. He's 27. He made $855,000 this past year. Look, Jake Hansen was a good linebacker. Some of these decisions are going to be easier than others. He knows the scheme. He got some meaningful snaps, not too many, but he was on the field mainly in the Green Bay game. I certainly thought that at Green Bay, you're missing your two starting linebackers in To'o and you're missing Azeez Al-Shire, and we still performed really well. And I like this linebacker unit. I don't think it's kind of a don't fix it if it's not broken type of thing. So yeah, bring back Jake Hansen. I'm all for that. Kurt Heinisch, interior defensive lineman, played 21% of the snaps. Here's where I get a little iffy with Kurt Heinisch. He was hurt a lot this season. Actually started the season on injured reserve and then eventually had to bring him back. Look, I could go either way on Kurt Heinisch. He currently made around $860,000. So if you can sign him to a similar contract, maybe have some injury clauses, put a little more bonuses in the contract. If you want to bring back Kurt Heinisch again, interior defensive line, that's fine with me. How about Dalton Keene, the tight end, who's a restricted free agent? Look, this guy didn't play a single snap. He was a backup. So let's go through the tight end room really quickly. Dalton Schultz, Cade Stover. You had Quintiriano, who got hurt. Obviously, Brevin Jordan didn't play, but he's back now. And then you had Irv Smith, who was signed. So I really think this tight end room's big enough, especially if you got Irv Smith around the building. Dalton Keene was nowhere to be found. Maybe he's a practice squad player, so pretty indifferent with him. Zach Thomas, the right tackle, another free agent, played 9% of the snaps. Look, Zach Thomas obviously came in from the Patriots. The Texans signed him. Keep Zach Thomas. Can never have too many linemen with this pretty banged up line. And that's just the reality. You're going to need as many linemen as you can get. Next up on the list, we have Tegan Quintiriano, another tight end. Look, Quintiriano, the thing with him is he can't stay healthy. And I just kind of wonder what he could be if he did stay healthy. Not saying he's the most impactful, the greatest player ever, but with Quintiriano, I would sign him again. It's not like, he's gone out there and performed terribly. It's just he literally struggles to get on the field. So maybe look at the contract, try to have some more incentives for him to get him on the field. Kadar Holman, a cornerback, does a lot of special teams. No problem with signing Kadar Holman again. He stepped in. He had that, pretty good play on special teams. And, I think you can re-sign Kadar Holman. That's not a huge deal to me. And now he was signed for $1 million. So we just broke the $1 million threshold with Kadar Holman. Irv Smith Jr., a tight end. Again, keep the tight ends going. Irv Smith was one of the few tight ends that could actually block. And if you don't draft a tight end this year, I really think you just need to go ahead and keep some of your tight ends in the room. Sign Irv Smith. He was fine. He caught like 1 or 2 passes in the Chiefs game. He blocked for you, so yeah, why not? Devin White. This is where we get a little interesting. Devin White for $1.1 million. The linebacker we signed pretty much off the streets. Look, Devin White had some nice moments pressuring quarterbacks. He was able to blitz. That's mainly what he was used for. His coverage skills weren't amazing. Realistically, you wouldn't really want him to see the field, but he's a good name. He's a very physical linebacker. There are special packages where D'Amico loves to put him in as a blitzing. He's kind of a freak athlete, even though he has come back from injury. No problem with Devin White at all. Miles Bryant is the next name on the list at $1.1 million. Again, another cornerback. Miles Bryant is a must re-sign. Miles Bryant played great for you guys. Played great for us, for me as well. We really were able to get him in a couple of spots at that cornerback role, kind of that nickel slot position. And he performed much, much, much better than anyone thought he would. So Miles Bryant is a must sign. Get him back. Obviously, you don't want him to be starting in that nickel position, but man, when he was playing, like take the Chargers game, for example, he only let up 1 catch. Yes, it was the 85-yard touchdown to Ladd McConkey, but that was kind of Kalen Bullock's fault as well. That should never have been a touchdown. So bring back Miles Bryant for sure. Kendrick Green, the center. as a free agent. Look, the thing about Kendrick Green is the Houston Texans never put him on the field. They don't feel comfortable putting him on the field. They chose to start Kenyon Green over him several times. They chose to shuffle around the whole line before they let Kendrick Green touch the field. It was so bad, we were all wondering, hey, where is Kendrick Green? Can we just see this guy play? Everyone else is bad. So they put Kendrick Green finally on the field. He performed pretty terribly, pretty badly. It wasn't as bad as Kenyon Green the whole time. There definitely were moments where it was as bad, but look, the reality is this line is kind of just a mess. Kendrick Green, I'm fine with not re-signing him. They refused to put him on the field anyway. He didn't really have any impactful snaps. His snap share was 16%. Again, he's just at this point, if you're not going to play him, come on, what are we doing here? Jerry Hughes, another edge. Look, I'm not opposed to re-signing Jerry Hughes. Kind of a rotational piece that barely, sees the field. I'm fine with it. Now he's at $1.3 million. I would also be perfectly fine with letting this guy go. Maybe drafting an edge later on in this draft class because the D line spots run so deep in this draft class. It's actually insane. So those are not the most detailed thoughts about Jerry Hughes, but that's just the reality kind of the position and of the draft. You don't necessarily need him by any means. John Weeks, the long snapper. Look, he's the longest tenured Texans player on the team. I think it's impossible to be a bad long snapper. I don't see why you don't just re-sign him to a year again, another year contract. He made, what did he make? 1.3 million again. So John Weeks, a good face of the franchise. Always good to have him around. He's getting older though. Maybe retirement's coming soon for him, but you can go ahead and re-sign him. All right, moving right along to Agumbawale. Dare Agumbawale, the running back for the Texans, played 28% of the snaps. Look, under the Bobby scheme, Agumbawale got a lot of snaps. He was he was your best pass protecting running back. At least that's what the Texans thought. They played him a lot. They even ran a couple of screen plays. I don't know why they did that, looking at Bobby to Agumbawale. And I don't hate the player. I think he's a solid player. I think he works his butt off, and I think he really enjoys, maybe not enjoys, but he's the best running back we have at pass blocking. He's there on every passing third down trying to pick up a block. So, and he has had good reps there pass blocking. Obviously had the kick 2 years ago when Fairbairn was hurt. So no problem signing Agumbawale. I just kind of questioned his role in our overall scheme. Because when there were moments when he was getting maybe some snaps that I felt like he shouldn't have been getting, but still a solid player. So now we're finally getting to a couple more interesting players. Mario Edwards Jr. for the interior defensive line. Yeah, this is interesting. I do think you have to sign Mario Edwards Jr. back, and I'm going to say that about a lot of these interior defensive linemen, these D tackles. I think you need to sign them if you don't go draft someone. Again, this D tackle class is amazing. If you're planning on drafting a tackle, then maybe you don't have to have this conversation with Mario Edwards. I do think he wasn't as useful in the run blocking game as Fatukasi was, but he still played really great for you when he was healthy, when he was on the field. So again, he's probably not as necessary as Fatukasi is when we get to him, but still a great player. Not a need if you're going to draft. If you're not going to draft someone, then go ahead and sign him. Chris Boyd is next, the cornerback who only plays special teams, who pushed Frank Ross and started that whole controversy. Look, man, Chris Boyd, I don't want to see him back. He plays with a lot of heart. He plays with a lot of energy. We had him for 1.7 million this year. He's just a hothead. There's too many boneheaded mistakes he makes in big games. And even just regular games when he's getting flagged on special teams for holding or unnecessary roughness or just taking off his helmet in the middle of a field. He's a hothead. I don't love him. When he touched the field a couple of times, that wasn't special teams. And yeah, it didn't look great. He's not a great cornerback. He's really just a special teams player. I would say if Frank Ross wants him, then maybe re-sign him. But if not, then what are we doing? We don't really... his attitude has kind of been all over the place. I know it was passion, but he's just kind of a bonehead, and I don't really care if he gets signed or not, to be honest. The next name's an interesting one. How about Eric Murray, the safety, who played 78.2% of the snaps this year, $1.75 million. And here's what I'll say about Eric Murray. He was never meant to be a starting safety. That was never supposed to happen. He had to start when Petrie and when Jalen Petrie and Jimmy Ward got hurt. Look, you have to re-sign Eric Murray. Jimmy Ward's made of glass. Petrie's playing in that nickel, which is a very physical position. So even if you weren't made of glass, you would probably get injured. You're going to miss a couple games. And I don't think Petrie's like super injury prone. It's just the nature of the position. You need a backup safety. And Eric Murray as a backup safety is perfectly fine. Even as a starting safety, it's a bit shakier. Obviously, you wouldn't want it. So I'm not going to sit here and say it's fine. But like, if you had no other option, you could do much worse than Eric Murray. So with that safety room constantly getting banged up, I think you have to sign Eric Murray back once again. Okay, moving right along. Derek Barnett, the edge rusher. Look, Derek Barnett played amazing this year. You want to have good guys that you can just keep throwing into that edge spot. If you're going to go sign another edge, then maybe you let Jerry Hughes go. Maybe you let Derek Barnett go. But if you're not, I think you just keep him. He played well for you. He's about $2 million, so I think that's fine. Nothing wrong with the Derek Barnett re-signing. Now here's where it gets a little interesting. Neville Hewitt is the next player on this list, and he is currently on the team for $2.3 million, playing 31% of the snaps. Hewitt had a great game against the Packers, ultimately recovering that or intercepting Jordan Love early on in the game. He's also on special teams a lot. I think he's a solid player. That's a little expensive for a backup linebacker, or maybe just a backup linebacker, and a special teams ace. So I don't know. Maybe you work around that contract. I think that's a little bit of an overpay. Don't hate the player. I would want to see him re-signed. I'm just not in love with the $2.3 million for that. But I mean, I guess more power to them. And it gets even more confusing when Delshawn Phillips, who played 2.5% of the snaps this year, is making 2.6 million. So he's making 300,000 more than Neville Hewitt, and 2.3 of his is guaranteed, which is kind of absurd. Don't re-sign Delshawn Phillips. I don't think he's worth it unless he's just a special teams ace and I'm missing it. But even then, I don't see the need to re-sign Delshawn Phillips. Not really understanding that much. All right, next up on the list, MJ Stewart at safety for $3 million. Look, Stewart's probably a special teams ace. I rarely saw him play safety. Played 8% of the snaps. I mean, it just depends on how much you're in love with this safety room. If you think the safety room can stick together, then I don't know if you re-sign him. Maybe just keep him on special teams. $3 million is a little pricey for that, but I mean, he's a safety. It's a position that the Texans are always going to need with, Jimmy Ward and Petrie often facing injuries. So, and I guess he wasn't too bad on special teams. Nothing wrong with him, unlike Chris Boyd. Okay, so now we have cracked into the top 5 players. And the 5th player that the Texans have in free agency, or that is a free agent, is Case Keenum. Played 0% of the snaps this year. He's 37, made $3.1 million. Look, I would love Case Keenum to be on this team in kind of a coaching role, like maybe an assistant quarterback coach. Obviously, that would entail Case Keenum retiring and looking for that kind of role. I think the reality is you don't need Case Keenum on this team unless you want to fit him in that coaching role. I like the dude. He's obviously got a lot of history with the Texans. You have a very, very serviceable backup in, oh my gosh, I'm blanking. But you have a very, very serviceable backup in Davis Mills. So, the Case Keenum thing, I'm kind of over it. Maybe offer him a coaching position, and if he doesn't take that, then ultimately part ways with him. But it would be cool for him to be in more of a coaching role. Moving on, we have Jeff Okudah, the cornerback, making $4.7 million a year at 4. I don't want to see Jeff Okudah back on the Texans. He's just, injuries have derailed his career. He was the 3rd overall pick a few years ago. Really looked like a blue chip player coming out of college, but injuries have derailed his career. He's not that serviceable at all. He's not that serviceable in special teams. He's really, really not serviceable on the field. If Jeff Okudah is on the field, you start getting nervous and you notice it. And that's the biggest, kind of no-no from like a viewer's perspective. If there's a player who, when you see them come on the screen and they start playing for your team and you're just like looking like you're shaking a little bit, sweating, like, yeah, no, I'm fine on that. Jeff Okudah, I'm sorry, man. Get this dude out of the building. We'll find another corner off the street. And moving on to top three. Now, third, we have Fadakasi, the interior defensive lineman. I've already kind of stated this before. He's making $5 million a year. Fadakasi, I think you resign. I think he really enjoyed his time in Texas. He's very humble. He's a great run stopper. He didn't have like outstanding sacks. He was obviously pretty banged up like the whole year, but he was one of your best interior guys at stopping the run, which could be a glaring weakness if we don't re-sign some of these good players or hit on free agents. So I just make it simple. I really liked Fadakasi. Thought he played really well, and he was banged up so much of the year. He still has a lot of potential you can tap into. So let's re-sign Fadakasi. At two, we now have Robert Woods. Robert Woods, who played 32% of the snaps at $7.6 million this year. This was probably one of the hardest things for me to wrestle with, this Robert Woods situation. You have a wide receiver room that's pretty much a train wreck right now. His stats were very underwhelming this year, even way more underwhelming than last year. So part of me wants to say, maybe Bobby Slowick didn't really utilize Robert Woods well this year. But last year, it was still Bobby Slowick on the team. And I know some of this can be Stroud's regression, but Robert Woods really wasn't a guy you could depend on at all this year. Besides maybe run blocking, that's kind of where he gets his value as being a great run blocking wide receiver. But in terms of actual threat, I mean, man, he was fumbling a lot down the stretch. Like in near postseason football, he was fumbling the ball. When they have him returning punts, I get scared. I don't want to see it. I really hate to see Robert Woods get back there. And even when he takes off, I'm afraid he's going to fumble it. So I like him. He's a vet. His leadership is probably somewhat valuable in that wide receiver room. I just think you're starting to run out of tread with Robert Woods, and I am not jumping over my heels to re-sign this guy. Now, if you want to make the argument that the receiver room is so bad, you need to retain him. That's fair. I just think that with Mechie and Hutch, I don't know how much Robert Woods is actually going to add to that. I see him around the same level. And it also depends on how much you have to pay him because he currently made $7.6 million. So that's not, my favorite number in the world to come out with Robert Woods. But I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens. And finally, the last player making 22.5, or excuse me, the last player that made $22.5 million this year, that is no other than Stefon Diggs. I've kind of already been vocal about this on my channel. I love Stefon Diggs. He's a really cool guy. He signed my hat at a game. I love him. I just think the problem with Stefon is going to be the number. I think I personally wouldn't feel comfortable paying Stefon more than like 12 million, and that's high. And then there's already been reports saying that he's looking around, like maybe he's not looking, but some teams are considering offering him between like 16 and 17 million. I don't see the value there. It's a 30-plus-year-old receiver coming off a torn ACL. Yes, our wide receiver room is damaged, but let me tell you guys, even if we sign Stefon Diggs to 1 year and pay him the 17 million, he's a very short-term solution. You want a young guy who's going to be with this team for 4, 5, 6 years. Stefon Diggs is nearing the end of his career. Just, the history of a 30-year-old receiver coming off a torn ACL and being successful is very thin. And I just think you need younger guys. Stefon was great as kind of that slot threat when he played with us, and he really likes it here, and he wasn't a diva. There's a lot of positives there. I just don't think the number is going to be right enough. Again, if you want to make the argument about the receiver room, I get it, but you're going to have to pay him, and he's coming off an injury. There's no telling what he's going to be like next year. And I would love for him to prove me wrong, come back on a new team, and just, guns a-blazing, be awesome. And I would be very happy if that happened. I just don't want to be the team that gambles on Stefon Diggs as much as I do like him. But again, it all revolves around that number. If it's around 11, 12 million, I'd consider it. I just don't think it's going to be that much. I think it's going to be a lot higher than that. So that is the conclusive list of the 22 free agents. Stefon Diggs, the number one most paid player at 22.5 million last year, and Jake Hansen only making $855,000, man. What a shoddy paycheck. Just kidding. But that is the list of free agents. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree, anything you changed, and any reasoning you didn't like. And like always, like and subscribe, man. I'm always doing this type of content, this Texans content. And yeah, let me know if you guys have any video suggestions or other things you want to see. So that's all I got for this video. And I will see y'all in the next one, man. Peace out.